Nobody builds small things the way the Japanese do. A tiny box on four wheels, and somehow, engineers in Tokyo spent years making it capable of crossing rivers, climbing mountain passes, and hauling loads that would embarrass trucks twice its size. 5 of those machines are what we are talking about today, and every single one of them was engineered way beyond what anyone actually asked for. Before we get into it, if you have ever wondered why Japan kept building these machines when almost nobody outside Asia knew they existed, stick around. Number 3 on this list broke records that full-size 4x4s could not match. And number 1, engineers literally had no reason to build it that well. They just did anyway. If vehicles with ridiculous engineering stories are your thing, subscribe and hit the bell. New video every week. Now let us get into it. Number 5, Suzuki Jimny SJ410. Weighing just 720 kilograms and powered by a 550 cubic centimeter engine, the SJ410 had no business surviving where it went, but it did every single time. Suzuki launched the Jimny in 1970 as the LJ10, originally fitted with a 2-stroke 359 cubic centimeter engine. By 1981, the SJ410 arrived with a proper 4-stroke 550 cubic centimeter SO8C engine producing 28 horsepower, a number that sounds embarrassing until you factor in a curb weight lighter than most modern motorcycles. What made the SJ410 genuinely overbuilt was its ladder frame chassis, a feature almost no vehicle in its weight class used. Every competitor at the price point ran unibody construction. Suzuki gave it a proper body-on-frame setup, solid front axle, and a 2-speed transfer case with a low-range ratio of 2.435 to 1. That is serious crawling hardware on a vehicle you could park in a hallway. Ground clearance sat at 190 millimeters from the factory. Approach and departure angles were aggressive enough that the SJ410 could handle terrain that stopped far larger SUVs. Japanese farmers used them in mountain rice paddies. African aid organizations used them where Land Rovers could not fit. Indonesian militaries bought them in bulk. Production ran until 1998 in most markets, spanning 17 years with minimal updates because the formula worked. Over 1.5 million SJ series units were sold globally across that generation. Have you ever driven or ridden in a Jimny SJ410? Drop your story below. Where were you, and did it surprise you? That was a 28 horsepower machine, outselling proper off-roaders worldwide. Next up is a vehicle that took the same philosophy and applied it to something that carries cargo and somehow ended up tougher than either. Number 4, Honda Acty 4WD. Honda built a truck the size of a golf cart and gave it 4-wheel drive, a mid-mounted engine, and independent suspension. For a vehicle that hauls rice bags, that is absurdly over-engineered. Honda introduced the Acty in 1977 as a K truck, Japan's miniaturized commercial vehicle class, regulated to 660 cubic centimeters displacement, 64 horsepower maximum, and a body width under 1.48 meters. The kei-class sounds like a limitation. Honda treated it like a design challenge. The Acty used a mid-engine, rear-wheel drive layout as its base, unusual for a truck of any size. When Honda added 4WD in the early 1980s, the powertrain complexity jumped significantly. Engineers routed a front drive shaft past the cab floor and into a front differential, all within a package shorter than 3.4 meters. The 4WD engagement was part-time with a vacuum-actuated front differential, meaning the system could be engaged without the driver leaving the seat. Ground clearance was 155 millimeters, modest by off-road standards, but sufficient for the agricultural terraces, narrow mountain paths, and flood-prone farm roads it was designed to navigate. Payload capacity in the later generations reached 350 kilograms, more than half the truck's own curb weight. Suspension used torsion bars up front and a leaf spring solid axle at the rear, a setup tuned for loaded stability over rough surfaces rather than sporting response. Japanese farmers used the Acty 4WD as a daily tool for decades. Export markets in Southeast Asia, Africa, and even North America through gray market importers created a global following that Honda never officially chased. Acty trucks from the 1980s and early 1990s remain in active agricultural use in Japan today. K trucks like the Acty are now legal to import in many countries. Would you use one as a farm vehicle or daily driver? Tell us below. Honda built a working farm truck with sports car engine placement, but the next vehicle on this list was built to go places where farms do not exist, and it still ran on fuel efficient enough to embarrass a city car. Number 3, Daihatsu Taft F10. Daihatsu called it a Taft. The military called it reliable. Off-road clubs across Asia called it unbeatable. Engineers called it quietly one of the most overbuilt small 4x4s ever produced on a budget. Daihatsu launched the Taft in 1970 1974, positioned as a direct challenger to the Suzuki Jimny in the compact off-road segment. The F10 used a 958 cubic inch inline-4, producing 41 horsepower, substantially more displacement than the Jimny of the same era, and enough torque at low RPM to make the vehicle genuinely capable in deep terrain. What separated the Taft from competitors was its structural approach. Daihatsu engineered a fully boxed ladder frame with 5 cross members, more than most light trucks of the period used. Body panels were bolt-on and interchangeable between model years, a practical decision that made field repair possible anywhere a wrench was available. The hardtop version used reinforced A-pillars designed to withstand rollover loads, a safety engineering decision almost unheard of in the budget 4x4 segment of 1974. The transfer case offered 3 positions, 2H, 4H, and 4L, with a low-range ratio of 1.944 to 1. Ground clearance was 195 millimeters, marginally better than the Jimny, and remarkable for a vehicle with a longer wheelbase. Approach angle from the factory was 44 degrees, a figure that modern compact SUVs costing 10 times as much struggle to match. Daihatsu sold the Taft across Southeast Asia, the Middle East, and Oceania under various names, including the Daihatsu Wildcat and Rocky F10. Indonesian military and police forces adopted it as a patrol vehicle. Production in various forms continued until 1984 with over 200,000 units produced. Collectors in Australia and Japan continued to restore F10s, and many remain in daily off-road use in rural Indonesia. The Taft F10 is one of the most overlooked 4x4s in history. Had you heard of it before this video? Comment yes or no, and if yes, where did you first see one? A budget off-roader with military-grade rollover protection and a 5 cross-member frame. Next is a vehicle that went even further, a K-truck that was engineered to survive floods, not just terrain. Number 2. Subaru Sambar Truck 4WD. Subaru is famous for symmetrical all-wheel drive and rally cars. Before any of that, they were building it into a tiny cargo truck that weighed 600 kilograms and could ford water up to its door sills. Subaru introduced the Sambar in 1961 as a rear-engine K vehicle. By the time four-wheel drive arrived in the early 1980s, the Sambar had already proven itself across a decade of agricultural use. Adding 4WD to a rear-engine platform required engineers to design a front drive shaft that ran beneath the cab floor, a compact but mechanically complex solution in a vehicle with almost no unused space. Subaru's 4WD system on the Sambar used a viscous coupling, limited slip differential at the front axle technology that Subaru was simultaneously developing for its passenger car range. Applying it to a K-truck was a deliberate choice to improve traction on wet, muddy, and loose surfaces without requiring the driver to manually switch between modes. The system transferred torque automatically when rear wheel slip was detected. Payload capacity reached 350 kilograms in the truck version. Suspension used independent double wishbone geometry at all 4 corners, a setup found in sports cars of the period, not farm trucks. This gave the Sambar an unusually smooth, loaded ride on rough roads, which mattered for farmers transporting fragile produce over mountain tracks. Ground clearance was 165 millimeters, and the 4-wheel disc brakes on later models were a safety specification that many full-size trucks of the same era had not adopted. Subaru produced the Sambar continuously from 1961 until 2012, 51 years before outsourcing production to Daihatsu. Over that span, it became Japan's best-selling K-truck multiple times and remains in wide agricultural use across rural Japan, Nepal, and parts of Southeast Asia. The Sambar used sports car suspension geometry in a farm truck. What is the most over-engineered feature on a vehicle you have personally owned? Comment below. 51 years of production, independent suspension, automatic 4WD, all on a vehicle smaller than a golf cart. Now for number 1, a machine where engineers had every reason to cut corners and chose not to on every single component. Number 1. Mitsubishi Minicab 4WD. Mitsubishi made Zero fighters and gallant rally cars. When they applied that same engineering mindset to a K-truck, they accidentally created one of the most mechanically sophisticated small vehicles ever sold for less than $5,000. Mitsubishi launched the Minicab in 1966, initially as a rear-wheel drive K-truck competing in Japan's commercial vehicle market. Four-wheel drive arrived in the 1979 third generation, coinciding with Mitsubishi's increasing expertise in 4WD systems through its Jeep manufacturing license and the development of what would become the Pajero platform. The Minicab 4WD used a 550cc engine, producing 28 horsepower in early variants, later upgraded to 660 cubic centimeters, producing 38 horsepower, as Japanese K regulations changed in 1990. What made the drivetrain unusual was its super select-inspired part-time 4WD system, a simplified version of the system Mitsubishi was developing for the Pajero simultaneously. Drivers could select 2WD, 4WD high, or 4WD low, with the low-range ratio of 2.148 to 1, giving crawl capability that rivaled purpose-built off-roaders. Mitsubishi specified the Minicab's ladder frame with the same galvanized coating processes used on their commercial truck range, not the budget key segment. Underseal thickness exceeded regulatory requirements. Wiring harnesses were routed with the same protection standards used on the L200 Strata pickup. These decisions added manufacturing costs that Mitsubishi absorbed rather than passed to buyers because the engineering teams responsible came from the truck division and built to truck standards by habit. Ground clearance reached 175 millimeters. Approach angle was 42 degrees. Payload was 350 kilograms at a curb weight of just 680 kilograms, meaning the Minicab could carry more than half its own weight while maintaining full 4WD capability. Japanese postal services use them. Mountain rescue teams in Nagano Prefecture use them. Vegetable farmers in Hokkaido still use them. Production under the Minicab name continued until 2014, when Mitsubishi transferred Kei vehicle manufacturing to a Nissan collaboration. Over 48 years, the Minicab had quietly become one of the most trusted working vehicles in Japanese rural history, engineered to a standard nobody required, because the people who built it simply refused to build anything less. Mitsubishi used truck-grade engineering on a vehicle that cost less than a used sedan. Which manufacturer today do you think still overbuilds their vehicles beyond what the market demands? Drop your answer below. 5 vehicles, 5 different engineering teams, one shared obsession building small machines that performed like they had no idea they were supposed to have limits. The SJ410 outlasted rivals twice its size. The Acty put sports car engine placement into a farm truck. The Taft F10 used military-grade frame construction in a budget off-roader. The Sambar ran independent suspension for half a century. And the Minicab borrowed truck division standards for a vehicle that cost less than most motorcycles. Japan did not build these machines to impress anyone. They built them to work in rice paddies, on mountain roads, through monsoon floods, across terrain that full-size vehicles avoided. And in doing so, they created something that the automotive world mostly ignored, and history is only now starting to appreciate. If this video showed you something you had never seen before, share it. Someone you know will thank you for it. Subscribe for more stories about the vehicles history forgot to mention, and leave a comment which of these 5 would you drive today.